Are you not 11 years old? You're a big girl, Mr. John retorted, as he tried to hold her hand.
The school academic calendar is already in its second term. How will she cope? I hear my mom argue with my dad. They always do this. Arguing, I mean. No decision is ever made calmly, especially about me. Sometimes, I wish they could get divorced, like I see on TV. Susan, my dad yells. I know that tone. He wants me to pick a side in the argument. Sir, I say as I hurry to their bedroom. In the prestigious compound of Bankole High School, a car drives through the gates. Eyes begin to peep out from every corner. It wasn't visiting Sunday, so why was a car driving to the front of the female hostel? That was the thought on everyone's mind. Those too curious to wait for their friends to tell them what they heard rush out to see for themselves. A handsome man opens the door for a girl not over 11 years old. She is dressed in the boarding school outwear and looks very sad. A woman with red puffy eyes, probably from tears, asks the girl. The handsome man, her father, drops her luggage out of the boot. Susan, make sure you get first, as you always do, he smiles. Stop it, Philip. Are you not worried about how she would cope? Positions aren't important, baby. Just do your best, Vera retorts. Why do you always have to insult me in the presence of our daughter? Philip's voice rises. I didn't insult you, their voices are beginning to increase. Mom, Dad, bye, Susan says as she begins to pull her bag towards an older woman. The hostel matron, to avoid being embarrassed by her parents, the little girl Susan turns to wave bye to her parents as they drive off. Welcome to Bankole High, Susan. I have been briefed about you. I look forward to knowing you more, the older woman smiles. Something about her unsettles Susan. Thank you, Ma. She forces a smile. An older girl walks over to the matron. Naomi, this is Susan, the new girl. Get a room, preferably yours. Please look after her. She will need help to catch up with the first term notes. As Susan drags her bag, walking behind the senior Naomi, she begins to tear up. Why did her dad always have to have a hand over Mr. John? Mr. Johnson got admitted to Bankole High last term, into JS1, and because of that, her father refused to allow her apply or accept any other admission until she got into Bankole High. One would think Mr. John wasn't Mr. Philip's best friend, with the way they acted sometimes. As Susan settled into her new room, she couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The unfamiliar surrounding and the weight of her parents' expectations bore down on her. She unpacked her belongings. Slowly, each item a reminder of the life she left behind. Standing in front of their shared bunk was Naomi, the senior who had been assigned to look after her. Here are some notes. Hurry up with unpacking and start copying them, she said abruptly. Her tone wasn't friendly. After dropping the notes, she climbed up to the top of the bunk, claiming her bed space. Just then, a beautiful girl around Susan's age walked over to the bunk next to Susan's. Hi, new girl. My name is Feromi. And you are? She smiled at Susan. My name is Susan, she replied. Feromi was the first person to talk to Susan in the last 3 hours since she arrived, and Susan was excited not to mess things up. Do you need help with that? Feromi asked, pointing to the notes on Susan's bed. Immediately, shuffling was heard on the top bunk as Naomi warned Feromi not to write Susan's notes. I will check your notes later. I don't want to see any other handwriting other than your own, Naomi instructed before leaving the room, hissing in frustration. I will help you fetch water then, and any other thing you need help with, so that you can write your notes, Feromi offered. Thank you, Susan smiled as she pondered Naomi's behavior. As Susan and Feromi continued to unpack and chat, a sudden commotion erupted outside their dormitory. Voices raised in panic and urgency echoed through the corridors, sending chills down Susan's spine. What is happening? Susan asked, her voice trembling slightly. Feromi frowned, her brows furrowing with concern. I'm not sure. Let's go check it out. They hurried out of the room, joining a truck of students flooding towards the source of the disturbance. As they reached the entrance of the dormitory, they were met with a chaotic scene. A group of seniors were carrying a girl who was known for always fainting. Senior Choma was beating her before she fainted. They heard some girls whisper. Senior from L, Bankole I. Naomi, now in JSS 3, was finally the ultimate senior in junior secondary school, the prettiest in her set and dining prefect. What could be better, she sighed, as she stared at James, her classmate and crush. She had endured her fair share of hardship as a junior, and now it was her turn to wield power, unfortunately for the innocent juniors. If it pained them, they can do it back to their juniors, she thought, a mischievous glint in her eyes. She couldn't resist the opportunity to engage James in a conversation. James, I heard you were sick. How are you feeling now? She inquired, her tone playful as she approached him. I feel better, thank you. James replied with a shy smile before walking away. Naomi chuckled to herself, finding his bashfulness endearing as she watched him disappear into his prep class. However, her amusement quickly turned to irritation when she noticed him stop to chat with Susan, a new junior girl who happened to be her bunkmate. This girl, how does she know James now? She hisses as she approaches her best friend Choma. She begins to complain to Choma about Susan, a JSS1 girl whom she's assigned to take care of. That girl is so lazy. It's been 3 days and she still hasn't finished the first term notes, not to talk of being up to date with this term's notes. Abba, you know it's 13 subjects and you banned anyone from helping her. How many has she written? Choma asks. Last time I checked, 7 subjects so far, Naomi replies. As they continue to discuss, an older man walks up to them. Naomi, are you not the dining prefect? Come with me. Some days later, Susan, it's just been a week since you got here and you have opened your provisions, Naomi yelled at the junior girl. I don't like beans and they serve beans for dinner. And so what? If you don't eat the dining food, I don't want to see you eat your provisions, Naomi retorts. My mom said I should eat my provisions on days I can't eat the dining food, Susan retorts, hoping to change Naomi's mind. Naomi walks over to her and collects the pack of cereal in Susan's hand and walks away. Susan begins to cry. Naomi walks into another room. Room 5. Why is it so loud here? JS1 and 2 students, everybody kneel down next to your bunk. She sits on a vacant bed and begins to eat cereal. One of you stand up and go to room 3. Call Choma for me, she orders. 5 girls rush over to her. Are you deaf? I said one of you. The rest of you, go and bring offerings. Anyone that fails to give me an offering, I will give you 10 strokes. Naomi threatens as the junior students begin to rush to their lockers to retrieve provisions. As they return, Naomi counts the girls. One of you is missing, she says after counting. Where is that fat girl? She demands, remembering Ruth was friends with Susan. The junior students begin to look at one another. We don't know, senior. If you don't find her, you are all in trouble. Can you imagine? She thinks she can run away and we won't notice. The search continued till it was time for dinner. As the dining prefect, Naomi was in charge of serving the girls. As the line of the students slowly dwindled, Naomi's eyes scanned the room until they landed on Ruth, the missing girl from earlier. With a firm resolve, she motioned for Ruth to stand apart from the rest of the students, her expression unreadable as she served her food. The other juniors from room 5, who knew about the earlier incident involving Ruth, watched with curiosity. Whispers rippled through the room as they awaited Naomi's next move. Not sure of what punishment awaited Ruth for her disappearance, Naomi's gaze lingered on Ruth for a moment longer, her thoughts racing as she contemplated the appropriate course of action. Finally, With a decisive nod, Naomi turned her attention back to the remaining students, her tone cutting through the murmurs of anticipation. All right, dinner is over. Everyone, back to your rooms, she announced, her tone leaving no room for argument. As the juniors filed out of the dining hall, Ruth remained standing alone, a mix of apprehension and defiance written across her face. With a heavy sigh, Naomi approached her. Why did you run away? Ruth began to cry. My provisions are finished and I didn't know how to tell you. Naomi's expression softened as she said, Ruth, come with me. As Ruth follows her into the night, Naomi smirks, betraying her true intention. This girl will wash her clothes till her hands peel this night, she whispers, a cruel smirk playing on her lips, leaving the watching juniors uneasy about what awaited Ruth.
My school matron is a ghost. After some months in her new school bank holiday, Susan began to experience some weird things she couldn't explain to her newfound friends because they all felt unreal. Our still matron, Madam Joyce, was appearing in her dreams every night. Each morning when she woke up, she couldn't recall the content of the dreams, only remembering seeing her staring at her. Madam Joyce was a loving person, if you asked the students. She never punished them and was always eager to help when it was brought to her notice. But Susan soon found out some strange things about Madam Joyce. She never left the school premises, but always had provisions and snacks to sell to the students. She never bought foodstuffs, but her apartment always smelled of food being cooked. One Friday evening, as all the girls were playing outside due to it being the weekend, unfortunately for Susan, her bunkmate Naomi, who had taken it upon herself to bully Susan, had traveled due to sickness. Susan decided to stay in her room and read some novels she borrowed from the school library, as their return date was due for Monday. After some time, she fell asleep. Susan opened her eyes and found herself in the middle of the school premises. She saw Mr. John, their wicked maths teacher. As she tried to call out to him, a hand closed her mouth and pulled her behind a building. As she turned to protest, she saw Madam Joyce, but not the Madam Joyce she knew, but a young Madam Joyce, who seemed to be her age mate. It suddenly dawned on her that Mr. John looked younger too. It wasn't the fat Mr. John she knew. Shh, Madam Joyce said as they both watched Mr. John call a young Madam Joyce over to his staff room. Susan suddenly understood what was happening. She was being shown the past of Mr. John and Madam Joyce. Joyce, have you considered my proposal? Mr. John, who seemed to have been young Joyce's teacher, asked.
Sir, I can never be your girlfriend. My mommy said I am too young for such.
She replied with fears in her eyes. Come on, are you not 11 years old? You're a big girl, Mr. John retorted, as he tried to hold her hand. Young Joyce pulled back and ran back to her class. The scene changed, and Susan saw young Joyce knocking on Mr. John's staff quarters door. As he opened,
Sir, this is the assignment you said I should bring,
she replied, looking like she wanted to leave as soon as possible. Susan turned to talk to the Joyce that was watching with her. Why are you the only one submitting the assignment?
He refused to collect my assignment unless I brought it to his quarters,
young Joyce said. As young Joyce turned to leave,
Wait,
Joyce, Mr. John called. Come in. Let me mark your assignment so that you can take the notes with you to read for your exams.
I will read with my friend, sir,
Joyce replied. But Mr. John continued until she gave in. As they both entered the room, everywhere went silent. After a couple of minutes, Mr. John was seen peeping outside, making sure no one was there as he dragged a big bag into the empty school dump site. He dug a hole and threw the bag into the hole, covering it, and left. Everything ended there. Madam Joyce turned to Susan. How do I help? Susan asked. You can't. It's already dead. She went further to explain that Mr. John Susan knew today was the son of the Mr. John, the hotter. She has not been able to rest as no one ever found out what happened to her. Immediately, Susan woke up from the trance and she realized that she was drenched in sweat. She heard shouting outside the hostel and rushed to see what was happening. The security men had found a skeleton that seemed to belong to a young girl. The next couple of weeks were hectic as more officials came, and eventually it was discovered the skeleton belonged to a Joyce that went missing in the school years ago. The skeleton was returned to the family of the girl. It was concluded as murder, but the murderer was not discovered. Susan, whom young Joyce had warned not to disclose anything as it would only hurt the innocent family of Mr. John, could not say anything as no one would believe her either. She later heard Madam Joyce resigned and left the night of the event, but Susan knew better. She had finally found rest. Which story do you think we will discuss in the next episode of Bankole High School?